The sound of the slap came before the tears. Eliza Hart felt it echo in her chest as much as on her cheek. Not the blow itself, but what followed, the sudden quiet. The kind that came when hope realized it had nowhere left to go. She stood in the dirt yard behind the boarding house, fingers curled tight around a torn hem of her dress. The woman who had struck her was already turning away, words sharp and final. No pay, no mercy. Get gone before sunset. Eliza didn't argue. She had learned the cost of arguing. She only nodded once and walked toward the road with the small bundle that held everything she owned. The heat pressed down on her shoulders, heavy and breathless. Her mouth tasted of dust and shame. By dusk, her steps slowed. Her legs trembled. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. The town lay behind her, its lights already fading into nothing. Ahead, the land opened wide and merciless. She didn't see him at first. Only when her foot struck stone and she stumbled did a voice rise from the dark. Careful, she froze. Her heart slammed against her ribs as she turned. A man stood several paces away, half-shadowed by the firelight beside him. His face was calm, unreadable. His eyes, sharp and dark, studied her without hunger or fear. I didn't mean, her voice cracked. She swallowed. I'm not here to cause trouble. He said nothing for a long moment. Then, quietly, you're a long way from safety. She laughed once, brittle, I noticed. The man stepped closer, revealing a weathered face and a rifle resting easily against his shoulder. He was Apache. There was no mistaking it. Every warning she'd ever been told rang in her ears. You're bleeding, he said. She looked down. Her foot was torn open from walking barefoot too long. Blood darkened the dirt. I'll manage, she replied. Though her legs shook, he studied her another moment. Then, to her surprise, he crouched and set down his rifle. He tore a strip from his sleeve and held it out. Sit. She hesitated. Every lesson of survival screamed at her to run. But exhaustion won. When she sat, he bound her foot carefully. His hands were steady, gentle, not the hands of a monster. I'm Cade, he said at last. Eliza, she replied. The silence that followed was thick, but not hostile. A fire crackled nearby. Somewhere, night insects sang. You're alone, he said. I was a schoolteacher, she answered softly. Until I wasn't. He nodded once, as if that told him everything he needed to know. She watched his face. In the firelight, the lines carved by sun and hardship. This was the man they whispered about in town. The one they called the Blood Hunter. You don't look afraid, he said. I am, she admitted. Just not of you. Something unreadable crossed his eyes. They sat that way for a long time, the fire shrinking between them. Finally, she spoke again. They say you kill without mercy. He stared into the flames. They say many things. A gust of wind carried. A distant sound, faint, thin. A cry. Eliza stiffened. Did you hear that? Cade's head snapped up. His body went still, listening. The sound came again high, broken, unmistakable. A child, he rose in one smooth motion. Stay here. She stood too. Ah! He turned, irritation flashing. This is not your concern. It is if someone's hurt, she said, surprising. Even herself with the strength in her voice. You don't understand what you're walking into. I understand enough, she said. I've spent my life watching people turn away. I won't do it again. He studied her, something shifting. Behind his eyes, then he exhaled through his nose. Then, stay close. And do exactly what I say. They moved toward the sound, careful, silent. Smoke rose ahead, thin and bitter. As they crested a low ridge, the scene below unfolded. A burned homestead. Smoldering beams. Ash drifting through the air. Eliza's breath caught Dot, and then she heard it crying. Weak, frightened children, she whispered. Cade nodded grimly. More than one. They moved fast now. Near the remains of a cellar, a small figure huddled in the dirt. A girl, no more than 8, clutching a smaller child to her chest. Another lay nearby. Unmoving, Eliza dropped to her knees without thinking. "Hey," she said softly. "I'm here. You're safe." The girl looked up, eyes wide with terror. They took Mama. Eliza's throat closed up behind her. Cade scanned the horizon, jaw tight. "We can't stay long." "I know," she said, "but we can't leave them." He hesitated. The fire popped. Somewhere, wind stirred ash. 3 children, he said, quietly. "In this land, I won't walk away," Eliza said. "Not again." He looked at her then, really looked. And in that moment, something changed. "Then listen carefully." He said, "From now on, you do exactly what I say." She met his gaze. "I will." As the first child whimpered and clutched her sleeve, Eliza felt the weight of a choice settle on her shoulders, heavy, permanent, and impossible to escape. Behind them, the desert stretched wide and waiting, and ahead, the path would demand more than either of them yet understood. The boy's breathing came in shallow bursts, each one scraping Eliza's nerves raw. She pressed her hand gently to his chest, feeling the heat beneath her palm. Too hot, too fast. The little girl beside him, Nell, she had whispered, watched, with wide, unblinking eyes. "He's burning up," Eliza said. Cade crouched beside her, already scanning the ground. "Smoke damage, maybe worse." "Can he walk?" Cade didn't answer right away. He lifted the boy carefully, testing his weight, his response. The child groaned, but did not wake. "No," Cade said at last. "But I can carry him." Eliza's heart clenched. "And the others?" The baby whimpered in her arms, fists opening and closing. Nell stood stiffly, dirt streaked down her face, eyes hollow with shock. "We don't leave anyone," Eliza said. Cade studied her, the firelight, catching the scar along his jaw. "Then we move now, before anyone else comes." They moved quickly. Cade lifted the boy with practiced strength, settling him against his chest. Eliza took the baby, holding her close, murmuring soft words she barely remembered from another life. Nell followed close behind, small feet crunching on ash and broken wood. The desert swallowed them almost at once. The night air grew colder as they put distance between themselves and the ruined homestead. Stars stretched wide above, uncaring and sharp. Eliza stumbled once, then again. Cade steadied her without a word. "You can stop," he said quietly. She shook her head. "I won't." He didn't argue. They walked until her legs trembled and the baby's cries faded into exhausted whimpers. When Cade finally called a halt, they were hidden among low rocks and scrub. He laid the boy down carefully and checked his breathing. "He's worse," Eliza said. "Yes," she swallowed. "Then we can't wait." Cade looked at her, eyes reflecting firelight. "There is a fort to the east. Soldiers." Her heart tightened. "They'll kill you." "They might," he said simply. The wind hissed between stones. Somewhere far away, a coyote cried. "I won't leave you," she said. "You must, if it comes to that." "I won't," she repeated. He studied her face, searching for fear or doubt. He found neither. "Then listen," he said. "If soldiers come, you speak. You stand between me and them. You make them see you first." She nodded, though fear crawled up her spine. They rested only minutes before moving again. The land sloped downward, rough and uneven. Cade walked ahead, guiding them through shadows. Eliza followed, heart pounding with every step. At dawn, they saw the smoke, a column rising against the pale sky. Eliza, Cade said quietly, "That's the fort." Relief hit her so hard her knees nearly buckled. But as they drew closer, the sound of horses reached them. Not one or two. Many. Cade halted, raising a hand. Soldiers. She heard them now, boots, metal voices carried on the wind. "They'll see us," she whispered. "Yes." He turned to her, eyes sharp. "Remember what I said?" She nodded. Her mouth was dry, but her resolve held. They stepped into the open. Shouts rang out immediately. Rifles lifted. Horses stamped and snorted. "Stop right there." Eliza moved forward before fear could stop her. She lifted her chin and spoke loud enough to carry. "Please, the children are hurt." The soldiers hesitated. One stepped forward, older than the rest, his gaze moving from her to the children, then to Cade. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "step away from the Indian." She didn't move. "He saved them," she said. "All of them?" The man's jaw tightened. "You don't know who he is?" "I know what he's done," she replied. The wounded boy groaned. The sound cut through the tension like a blade. The soldier swore softly. "Doc, get over here." Men rushed forward. A medic knelt, examining the child quickly. "He's bad." The medic said, "Burns and smoke. Needs care now." The officer hesitated, eyes flicking back to Cade. "We can't bring him inside." Eliza stepped closer, voice steady but fierce. "Then you'll have to arrest me too, because I'm not leaving him." The silence stretched finally. The officer exhaled. "Bring the children in, all of them." Cade's shoulders eased, just slightly, as soldiers moved to help. One young man whispered, "That's the blood hunter." Cade didn't flinch. Inside the fort, chaos bloomed. Orders shouted, boots pounded. A surgeon took the boy at once. The baby was passed to a woman who murmured soothing words. Nell clung to Eliza's skirt, shaking. Cade stood apart, watchful, every muscle coiled. A tall officer approached, his expression wary. "I'm Captain Rowan. You'll tell me exactly what happened." Eliza opened her mouth. "I will," she said. "All of it." He nodded. "Good." His gaze shifted to Cade. "And you'll stay right there." Cade inclined his head. "I was not planning to leave." As the soldiers moved around them, Eliza felt the weight of everything pressing down. The choices she'd made, the line she'd crossed. She glanced at Cade, who met her eyes with a look that held both gratitude and warning. This wasn't over. It was only beginning. The infirmary smelled of boiled cloth, sweat, and smoke. Eliza stood just inside the doorway, hands clenched, watching as the surgeon worked over the boy's small body. The child's chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven bursts. Each breath sounded like a question the world might not answer. Cade stood a few paces back. Near the wall, his presence quiet but unmissable. Soldiers watched him with open suspicion. One kept a hand on his rifle at all times. "Will he live?" Eliza asked, her voice barely steady. The surgeon did not look up. "If the fever breaks by morning, maybe." That single word, maybe, settled. Heavy in her chest, the baby had finally fallen asleep in a borrowed blanket, worn out from crying. Nell sat beside her, knees drawn tight, eyes following every movement the adults made. She flinched whenever someone raised their voice. Eliza knelt beside her. "You're very brave," she said softly. Nell shook her head. "Mama was brave. I was just quiet." Eliza swallowed. "Sometimes that's braver." Across the room, boots sounded. A man stepped inside with the bearing of command. His gray hair and lined face spoke of years in hard country. "I'm Colonel Ward," he said. "I understand you arrived under unusual circumstances." "Yes," Eliza replied, "and we're grateful your men brought us in." His eyes moved to Cade. "That man is a known Apache raider." Cade did not deny it. "He also carried an injured child 20 miles through desert heat," Eliza said evenly. "And he didn't have to." Ward studied her. "You trust him?" "I do." Silence stretched. The colonel's gaze shifted to the wounded boy, then to the trembling girl clinging to Eliza's skirt. "You're asking me to shelter an enemy combatant." "I'm asking you to see a man who chose mercy," she said, "and 3 children who would be dead without him." Ward exhaled slowly. "You put me in an impossible position." Cade finally spoke. "Then punish me," he said. "But don't make the children pay for it." The words hung in the air, heavy and honest. Outside voices rose. The sound of horses. Movement. A soldier burst in. "Sir, there's a group approaching from the south. Apache." Cade closed his eyes briefly. "They've come." Ward stiffened. "How many?" "Too many," the soldier said. The fort erupted into motion. Orders shouted. Rifles raised. Eliza's heart pounded so hard she thought she might faint. "They'll kill you," she whispered to Cade. "Maybe," he said. "But they'll listen to me first. You can't go out there." He met her gaze, calm and resolute. "I must." She grabbed his sleeve. "Then I'm coming." He shook his head. "This is not your fight." "It became my fight when I chose not to look away." Before he could answer, a horn sounded from beyond the walls, long and low. A challenge. The gates creaked open. The desert beyond was alive with movement. Warriors on horseback, painted and armed, forming a wide arc around the fort. At their center stood an older man, tall and commanding, his presence carrying weight without a word spoken. Cade stepped forward. The murmurs from the soldiers behind him fell silent. "I am here," Cade called out. "Speak." The older man's voice carried easily. "You stand with our enemies." "I stand with children," Cade replied. A murmur rippled through the gathered warriors. "They are not ours." The elder said, "They are human," Cade answered. "That should be enough." The elder's eyes shifted to Eliza, who stood just behind Cade, heart pounding. "You are the woman," he said, "the one who walks beside him." "Yes," she said, lifting her chin. "I am." "Why?" he asked. She swallowed, then spoke from the place inside her that had been hollow for so long. "Because he chose mercy when cruelty was easier. Because someone once saved me when it would have been easier to turn away." Silence stretched. The elder dismounted and stepped closer. His gaze moved from Cade to the distant fort, then back. Again. "You would protect our enemy's children," he said slowly. "Even at the cost of your life." "Yes," Cade said. "And you?" he asked Eliza. She met his eyes without flinching. "Yes." A long moment passed. Wind stirred dust. Between them, somewhere, a child coughed. The elder turned to his warriors. "Lower your weapons." A ripple of disbelief passed through the line. Slowly, reluctantly, rifles lowered. The elder stepped closer to Cade. "You walk a dangerous path," he said. "You will be hunted by both sides." "I know." "Then go," the elder said, "before my people change their minds." Relief struck Eliza so hard her knees nearly buckled. The elder looked at her once more. "Protect the children," he said. "That is the only law worth following." With that, he turned away. The warriors melted back into the desert as quietly as they had come. The gates closed behind them. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Cade let out a breath he'd been holding for far too long. Eliza turned to him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "You did it?" "No," he said softly. "We did." Inside the fort, the surgeon emerged. "The boy will live," he said. "It will take time, but he'll recover." Eliza pressed a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. Cade closed his eyes briefly, then nodded. "Thank you." As night fell, lanterns flickered on across the fort. The danger had passed, but the weight of what had happened settled deep. Later, when the children slept and the camp quieted, Eliza found Cade sitting alone near the wall, staring into the dark. "They'll never forget what you did," she said. He shook his head. "Neither will I," she sat beside him. "What happens now?" He looked out at the open land beyond the fort. "Now we decide what kind of future we're willing to fight for." The wind carried the scent of sage and dust. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called Dud. Eliza drew her shawl tighter and stared into the vast night. For the first time, she didn't feel afraid of it. Morning came quietly to the fort, carried on pale light and the smell of dust warming under the sun. Eliza woke before the bugle sounded, her body stiff from sleeping on a hard cot, her thoughts already racing ahead of the day. Outside, the yard stirred with low voices and bootsteps. Somewhere nearby, a horse snorted. Life continued, indifferent to fear and miracle alike. She found Cade where she expected him, near the outer fence, watching the horizon as if measuring the world by instinct alone. He stood with his hands resting loosely at his sides, the early light tracing the scars along his arms. "They'll let us leave," he said, without turning, but not together, not openly. She stepped beside him. "No." For a long moment, neither spoke. "They'll take the children into the fort," he continued. "Find families, teach them their ways, and you?" she asked softly. His jaw tightened. "I will not be welcome here, or anywhere near it." Eliza looked past the walls, toward the wide land stretching beyond. "Then we leave," she said simply. He turned to her, surprised. "You would walk away from protection, from food, from safety." "I already did," she said gently. "I followed you into the desert." Cade studied her face, searching for hesitation. He found none. "You know what that means," he said. "Life will be hard. I know. People will talk. They already do. And you may lose everything you have left." She met his gaze without flinching. "I lost everything that mattered before I ever met you. What I've found since is worth fighting for." For a long moment, he said nothing. Slowly, something softened in his eyes. "We will need supplies," he said, "and time." "We'll find a way," she replied. They walked back toward the infirmary together. Inside, the children were awake. Nell sat on the cot beside Owen, carefully spooning water into his mouth. The boy's eyes fluttered open, clearer now, focused. "Mama," he whispered. Eliza's chest tightened. "She's not here, sweetheart. But you're safe." He frowned, then nodded faintly. "The man with the dark hair. He saved us." Cade stepped forward. "You're safe now." Owen's small hand reached out, brushing Cade's sleeve. "Thank you." The words landed deeper than any wound. Later, when arrangements were made and goodbyes exchanged, the weight of it all settled in. The children would stay at the fort, cared for until families could be found. It was the safest choice, even if it hurt. Nell clung to Eliza, refusing to let go. "You'll come back?" she asked. Eliza knelt and held her close. "I promise. And until then, you be brave for me." The girl nodded solemnly. Outside the gates, Cade waited with drift, reins loose in his hand. The sun was climbing, painting the land in gold. Eliza approached him slowly. "This is where our roads part. For now," he said. She hesitated, then reached out, pressing something into his palm. A small silver locket, worn smooth with age. "My mother's," she said. For luck, he closed his fingers around it. "Guide. I will guard it." They stood there, two souls bound by choice rather than blood, knowing the world ahead would not. "Be kind." "I don't know where I'm going," she admitted. "I do," he said quietly. "North? There's a valley beyond the red hills. Water, shelter. Far from the fighting," she searched his face. "And you?" "I'll go where I'm needed," he said, "but I'll come back." She believed him. They shared a final look. No promises spoken, no tears shed, just understanding. Then he turned, mounted his horse, and rode toward the open land. Eliza watched until he became a shape against the horizon. Then a shadow, then nothing at all. Days passed. She stayed at the fort, helping where she could, teaching the children letters, cleaning wounds, listening when soldiers needed to talk more than they needed orders. One evening, as the sun dipped low, a familiar figure appeared on the ridge. Her breath caught. He rode in slowly, dust-streaked, and weary, but alive. "I told you I'd come back," he said. She smiled, the weight of weeks lifting from her chest. "Then maybe," she said softly, "this is where we begin." The wind carried the smell of sage across the plain. The future remained uncertain, dangerous, fragile. But for the first time, it felt possible. Together, they turned toward it.